despite the uncertainty in the market, people are still chasing the property development dream. In tonight's special edition, the rules on how not to lose everything in a falling market. From not paying full price for materials to why buying an unmodernised house to develop could spell disaster. Plus, the story of two novice developers who think they can make a cool $250,000 on a converted industrial unit.
You bought a sausage factory.
That they paid too much for.
Do millionaires want to live in Rotherhithe?
And get too personal about.
Oh, this is great. See, I think we should cover the whole house in this.
In a market that comes tumbling down around their ears.
The reality is we're going to walk away with several £100,000 of a loss.
Now there's no rising market to cushion the mistakes of amateur property developers. I'm forever being asked if there's money to be made from property. It's certainly much harder, but the same rules still apply. So here's an ultimate guide on how not to lose everything in a falling market. My first rule is don't hang around in a falling market. The truth is, no one knows whether the market's bottomed out already or how long it will take to start to climb back up again. So unless you want to possibly risk having to wait years for it to head back up to enable you to break even, the golden rule is get in and get out quick and follow the 20-20 rule. A schedule under 20 weeks and a 20% contingency means that your profit margin should be protected even with big falls in the prevailing property prices. But a quickie is the last thing on Nigel Arbib and Sarah Donohue's minds. It's February 2008 and they're convinced that Rotherhithe holds the key to their success. Set in London's East End, it's a relative latecomer to the property boom. But during the good times, peak prices jumped 15% as speculators rushed in when other parts of London became too expensive. The problem is, the last to rise is often the first to fall, and things have well and truly stalled just as tonight's first-timers enter the market. Nigel and Sarah both have successful careers. He's developed nutrition products for bodybuilders, and she's a world champion powerboat racer. Now they're risking it all on a £1 million development.
We're taking a little bit of a calculated risk with it, but would rather be slightly risky than just do something that's boring and mediocre. I mean, if we'd wanted to do that, we would have gone and bought a flat and decided to convert that.
When you're developing in a falling market, no project is boring, and certainly not when you're banking it all on this. They're investing more than £1 million on a former sausage factory in Rotherhithe, East London. It's already been developed once, but they think there's still potential to create something really, really flash.
The whole idea is to have the ultimate yuppie pad. We're going to have a cinema in there, there'll be a gym, sauna, spa.
It's just going to be absolutely gorgeous. It's going to be a real plush pad when it's done.
It will be the ultimate. You won't need to walk out the door because you'll have everything right on your doorstep.
5,000 square foot as well. Where else do you get that in London?
At 5,000 square foot, it's 5 times the size of an average family house. This is going to need serious team effort.
When it comes to being the boss for problem solving, I have to solve everything.
What do you mean you have to solve everything? That's not true.
It is. Yeah, it is.
I don't know what exactly...
He's too content with everything. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, don't worry about it. No, it's not all right. Yeah, we will worry about it. I'm a big believer, if you don't like something, take the bull by the horns and sort it out.
Yeah, that's right, I'm a little Rottweiler.
Even with dog-like tenacity, this is one seriously problematic development.
So you bought a sausage factory.
It's a great name, isn't it? We went in, and then every time we went up a set of stairs, we were absolutely blown away. And then when we got up to the top floor, that just really sealed it for us, didn't it? You know, we just thought we've got to have it.
And even though it's literally 4 times the size of the kind of property I was looking at, and 4 times the price, you know, it was a case that I couldn't go on and miss this opportunity. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to do something like this.
Nigel and Sarah aren't the first to think that. The previous owner already had a go at developing this factory. But after some refurbishment, he put it back on the market, where it languished for years until Sarah and Nigel bought it.
So how long was it on the market for, do you know?
It was actually on the market for quite a long time. We think it was about 4 years, don't we?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years, but I think the original asking price was like 1.8.
Yeah, he was asking way too much.
And were you a bit suspicious about the fact it had obviously hung around on the market for a very long time?
We did think, you know, one of the main reasons is, as it stands at the moment, it is very child unfriendly. You cannot have a family in this place. There's hard edges everywhere. It's all concrete, glass and steel, so it's dangerous for kids. So the only people, realistically, that could buy this are people like me and Nigel, our sort of age, without kids, because those are the only people it would really suit.
If finding child-free couples with cash to burn wasn't hard enough, they have supersized development plans. On the ground floor, there are 2 empty cavernous spaces, and this is where Nigel and Sarah plan to add some LA glitz. There'll be an entrance hall, a home office, a 3rd bedroom with a wet room, sauna, 8-seated cinema and fully equipped gym. The top floor already has an amazing glazed reception room and large roof terrace, which is being left largely alone. On the 1st floor, there's currently a huge kitchen diner with 3 beds and 2 bathrooms. They're going to rejig this into 1 smaller bedroom suite and a master suite with walk-in wardrobe and luxury fitted bathroom. It's all very, very extravagant.
We're going to have a huge walk-in wardrobe, an amazing master bedroom. It's going to be absolutely stunning. But in here, this is going to be really nice. The whole of this room is going to be a saltwater spa.
Crikey me. And this is effectively a swimming pool in here, so that's a lot of weight to hold up on the 1st floor.
And there's going to have to be downstairs a structural support made out of steel, because the spa is going to be made actually bespoke out of concrete. It's going to weigh about 3 tons.
These are very glamorous plans, aren't they?
These are very big and very expensive plans.
What are you thinking that this amazing conversion is going to cost?
Well, my budget set for it is £250,000.
OK. Well, I think that seems incredibly shy. When I first walked in, I thought, oh, well, I have to spend £500,000 creating this.
Sarah and Nigel's strategy is to create an interior so good that buyers will be prepared to stump up megabucks and overlook the less than desirable location. But I don't think it all adds up. They paid £1.1 million for the sausage factory. A £250,000 budget is tiny when it's to include all the gadgets and gizmos Nigel and Sarah want. They plan to sell the development for £1.6 million, clearing them a £250,000 profit. This is one big gamble in the current market, not least because Nigel and Sarah are banking on selling it for £500,000 more than the most expensive property has sold for in the area. But that had river views. Sarah and Nigel's development doesn't.
You have to remember where it is. Do millionaires want to live in Rotherhithe?
The answer to that is probably no. But we're hoping that a couple comes along very much like me and Nigel and likes it, so we're only aiming at a very small proportion of people.
You may find that you'd have to sell this at a massive loss to actually sell it, and this is going to horrify you and it sounds incredibly dull, but I think that you should try and get planning permission to turn this into lots of smaller units which are much more appropriate for this area and are going to be a lot cheaper and therefore more easier to sell.
This building is so unusual and it's so strange and it's so gorgeous, it would be almost criminal to partition things off, because then you lose the experience of something where you walk up and you go, wow, this is amazing. It would pain me to do it. It really would.
What you don't want to do is discount the idea of turning it into several units and keep it as a house, and then in 6 weeks' time think, you know what, it really doesn't stack up. Meanwhile, you could be 2 weeks away from having planning permission. Yeah. So I wouldn't waste any time. I'd get planning in now anyway. At least you've got it, and then you can make the decision.
Even though I'm totally horrified about ruining the architecture and it's such a gorgeous building.
Sweetheart, you got to think about the business.
Nigel and Sarah have completely misjudged their market. Really, they should be turning this into 3 flats.
from a purely business point of view and looking on for sort of risk and return for your investment, that's probably the best bet. I will do my due diligence and think about it, but I think I can see that's probably where we'll end up going. But, you know.
I know sometimes you have to think, well, hold on, no, we should be looking at this as a money project, but it is. It is
a money project.
Yeah, but it is also something that we want to enjoy as well. I personally would have no enjoyment at all doing flats. None. Zero.
Time and time again, amateur developers fall into the trap of thinking that just because a property is unmodernised, there's profit in it.
My next rule: not always, and certainly not in a falling market. Take this street in Clapham, South London, where houses sell for 1.5 million. This one's on the market for 950,000. It's tired, run down, and needs total renovation. What do these would-be developers think it will cost to turn it from downtrodden to upmarket?
I think this property would probably need about £250,000 spent on it.
180,000?
£140,000.
Between £50,000 and £60,000.
None of them are even close, because to get the high-end finish it needs, you're unlikely to see change from £400,000. It needs totally stripping out, new wiring, new plumbing, a new roof, and that's just for starters. With a starting point of a 1.5 million resale price, you then need to take off the cost of the development of £400,000, leaving you with 1.1 million. A 20% profit would be 250,000, and this gives you the price you should be paying for this property, which is more like 850,000. Suddenly, its £950,000 asking price doesn't seem like such a bargain. So if you can't seal the deal, then walk away. It's a sum developers Nigel and Sarah didn't do before buying this converted sausage factory. They should be doing a radical rethink. It's now March 2008, the market's on the slide, but Nigel and Sarah are convinced that swanky glamour is the right thing to do.
Go on, Dan, put your back in it. Go on.
There we go, that's coming off.
It had taken the previous owner 4 years to sell it. I think Nigel and Sarah should reduce their risk by carving it up into 3 smaller units, but they're wedded to creating one luxurious 5,000 square foot dwelling.
We want to stick to the plan of doing it as a bit of a yuppie pad, because it probably wouldn't even give us that much enjoyment making it into flats, you know, whether we'd make more money or not. I mean, how often do you get 5,000 square foot to play with and do whatever you want to do with it? You don't, do you?
And to then move to just doing that into flats will kind of defeat the whole object of why we went for this place in the first place.
And it's a gorgeous building. It's beautiful, and you can't ruin it by making it into flats, can you?
Exactly.
The problem is the market in Rotherhithe is largely flats, bought by those who commute across the river to the Docklands, but who can't afford the sky-high prices of neighbouring postcodes. The kind of buyers Sarah and Nigel want to attract are already very well catered for a stone's throw away in nearby Shad Thames. Shad Thames has swanky restaurants, where Rotherhithe has a boarded-up pub. Shad Thames has cafes in abundance. Rotherhithe has sprawling estates. Shad Thames has views of the river and Tower Bridge, and Rotherhithe has its tunnel and a boarded-up tube station. I think Sarah and Nigel are living in cloud cuckoo land, thinking that they will find someone prepared to pay over £1.5 million for their property when there's this type of competition so close. It's time for a reality check.
But if you've got £1.5 million, this is where you go to spend it.
I don't know really, because we had £1.5 million and we looked at properties
Just
around
like
this size with a massive space, 5,000 square foot, and you just can't get that space anywhere else in London. It's only a 15 or 20-minute walk, so I would have that sacrifice for such a big place.
There may be somebody who wants to buy an amazing apartment with more square footage where you are, and they have to walk 15 minutes to get to nice coffee shops and bars. But your market is so slim, it's just a huge risk. Do you agree that in terms of location, This is at the opposite end of the spectrum to your flat.
I wouldn't say it's the opposite end of the spectrum.
You've got views of council blocks of Rotherhithe Tunnel, derelict shops, boarded up shops. That's your surrounding area, which is fine, but it's a very elite buyer. You're looking to buy your property in those surroundings.
And there is that big negative there, which is why we've got to make sure that all of the positives are at such an extreme that they outweigh that negative, which is a big negative.
And that is going to come at a very high price, making it that good inside.
I know, we've got a lot of work to do.
We do, but I think it will be successful. We have to be.
I fear Nigel and Sarah are too close to their development, and there is no rising market to cushion their fall. They desperately need to see the reality of the situation, but instead they're burying their heads in the sand.
So we're taking the whole of the stairs out, so we're completely changing the stairway.
Yeah, it's quite a major job.
For building designer Graham Cox, the reality of reconciling their £250,000 budget with their design ambitions is also creating a big challenge.
Beating the budget is going to be tricky. You've got to get the basics of the building work done, which will give them a very sound idea of what remains of their budget. But it's going to be up to Nigel and Sarah at the end of the day as to what they finally decide they want to do with finishes, as to whether they're going to keep within the budget or not.
As Sarah and Nigel's development begins to take shape, so does the realisation about how unrealistic their budget really is.
In all honesty, a place like this, I mean, Sarah was right, we are going to go over, and we have been speaking about that, and we know we're going to go over. We're not going to be able to help it. If we want to make sure it looks beautiful, you know, and all the finishes are perfect, we're going to go over.
Whilst work continues on site to create this lavish pleasure palace, Nigel and Sarah go home to plan the design for their bathroom.
My preference would be go for this, which I think is pretty funky. It's a shower column type thing, but it's also a steam room. It fits in with the kind of the factory style of the building, because look, it's got like these pipes that spray out like this.
With Nigel and Sarah's expensive tastes, it's not going to be long before they blow their increased budget.
With the fish tank wall, this is the closest I could get an idea of the kind of size, the actual dimension, being we want it to be the full 3 metres length of the wall. The only thing we need to decide upon is whether we go for one like this, or whether we go for two, or whether we go for one big one.
This development is getting seriously out of control. So what are you actually putting in the bathroom?
On the left will be a wall that comprises 2 fish tanks, so it'll be like an aquarium wall.
And how much is that?
The fish tank's 10,000.
10,000. OK.
Then you've got the 2 metre wide floor sunk hot tub spa.
How much is the jacuzzi then?
7,000.
7,000.
Yeah.
And how much are all the tiles coming in at?
That would be about 17,000.
That's £34,000 on bits and pieces. 10% of your entire budget on one bathroom. And that's not even on the bathroom, that's just on the bits and pieces together.
Yeah, a little less than 10%. But it's not going to be out of place with a lot of the rest of the building. So yes, it's going to be amazing, but so is the rest of the place.
You see, I don't really think anyone's going to have a nicer time living in this house because you spent 35 grand on the bathroom. It's not actually going to improve living in this house.
But we do want a beautiful bathroom.
Yes.
I mean, I love a really... I've been in friends' houses and they've got the most stunning bathrooms. And it's so nice to go in a bathroom that's impressive, because how many times you go in a bathroom and it's just a bathroom?
I don't think that you should have a boring, bog-standard bathroom. I definitely don't. But I think you can achieve a great bathroom without spending £35,000 on gadgets and gizmos. Even though Sarah and Nigel are now 5 months into this development, I still truly believe they should change their plans. Drawing up correct plans and sticking rigidly to them used to be a golden rule for amateur developers. Not anymore. To survive in a falling market, it's more important than ever to be prepared to adapt your plans as you go. You may have set your heart on putting in a limestone wet room with ultra-modern shower, basin and taps, but if the market has changed and young professionals aren't buying there anymore, you need to focus on who is and give them what they want. If the market where you've bought has crashed for houses but stayed more stable for flats, consider whether you need to convert your development. That may mean big changes and spending more, but the key is to constantly look for opportunities to protect your profit. And if that means a radical rethink, you can't afford not to. In Rotherhithe, though, before I can convince Sarah and Nigel to change their plans, fate plays a hand. With the budget out of control and the housing market starting to nosedive, the build comes to a shuddering halt.
Pretty much all that's happened in the last 4 to 6 weeks, we've been here and there's been about 2 people on site instead of 10. And all that's happened is that they put in the underfloor heating in the first floor, which is where it's happening. They've put in a small additional bit of wiring, finished off the plumbing that was already 80% done, and put in a couple of ceilings, and that's it.
I could have done more with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Probably.
Graham says that the reason they're behind is that he hasn't been given the right information at the right time, and once he has it all, work will proceed quickly. So after a heated site meeting, the relationship becomes increasingly strained. But Graham and his team set about finishing the development. Meanwhile, Nigel and Sarah plough on with their vision to turn this into a swanky millionaire's pad.
See, now that is perfect. I love that.
I'm just not sure I want a huge great head watching me while I'm on the loo.
I think the problem is I like things that are really exciting and you like stuff that's really boring. Oh, this is great. See, I think we should cover the whole house in this. I think purple, green, bit of zebra stripe, and I think it'd just look incredible. Got to get the zebra stripe in. I just think it'd be nice to have the centre unit, you know, with the zebra stripes.
So we've got a huge mosaic of Napoleon's head and some zebra skin material, some purple velvet and green shag pile grass carpet. Yeah?
Yeah.
And this is the design.
I've expressed my opinion on Bonaparte, and I think that he might not fit in, but this is where we're not seeing eye to eye at the moment. I hate to say.
He hates anything that's interesting and wild and colourful.
Not at all. Sarah likes to think that I'm all sort of just pursuing everything in black and white and everything. I'm not. But, you know, I also do err on the side of caution. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like it, and I think sometimes she thinks that I may be saying that, but I'm not. What I'm actually saying, I just want to keep an open mind.
His classic sentence is, let's keep an open mind. I've had an open mind for 30 seconds, it's closed now, we're doing this.
I think you should be aware of one thing. There's one danger with what you're doing that you need to be really aware of, and that is that there's a very good chance you're going to own this for quite a long time because of the figure that you're not prepared to sell it for less than. Okay. And bearing that in mind, be very careful with your design that anything that's very fashionable becomes very unfashionable very fast. So whilst you need to make a statement, I think you have to be very careful it's not a very fashionable statement. You don't want to have to gut this place in 4 or 5 years' time when you can sell it for the figure you want, because it's all completely yesterday's news.
But as I make a little progress with one problem, another old one rears its head.
I can't believe he's built this thing.
The last 2 years have been unprecedented in the property market. It's not just the extent of the downturn, it's the speed at which it happened. And when it happened, not everyone was listening. My next rule is no one's safe in this market, not even the very top end. During boom times, the super prime market in key areas rose fastest of all.
In the peak of the market, in areas like Kensington, Chelsea, Knightsbridge, Belgravia, it rose by about 35%.
And whilst the rest of the market was well into its descent by the middle of 2008, properties over 2 million seemed invincible.
In the summer '08, we sold 2 houses in Chester Square, one for 12 million and one for 15 million. And that really was still showing that the super prime market was still extremely strong, while the lower end was very weak indeed.
But then in September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed and the international financial communities started to unravel.
It was instantaneous. It was like someone pulling the plug out of a bath. Suddenly, these buyers have just disappeared.
The drop in the prices was more spectacular than the rest of the market. This property in Notting Hill once belonged to supermodel Elle Macpherson. It was on the market for £9.5 million, but fell to £7.5 in the space of 13 months. This elegant mews house fell from £6.5 million to 4.2 in just 10 months. No one's safe in today's property market, least of all the super primes. Back in Rotherhithe, East London, the market's dropped 37%, which is putting even more pressure on Nigel and Sarah and their difficult development.
I can't believe he's built this thing. This bloody great box thing that just comes straight into the room and he just dumped it. Why is he's drilled holes in the New York floor? That is just a complete monstrosity. That's supposed to be a maximum of 70 centimetres square, and that is more like 1.5 to 2 metres. Those are supposed to be mounted in the ceiling by the looks of it, those units. They're the wrong units. And they just stuck them on the ceiling and he just boxed it in.
Christ. Are these here to stay as well? Is that it? Are they staying here?
Those are not supposed to be there. I don't know why. I never signed off on having those put there. They're absolutely enormous. Imagine also when those kick in, the amount of noise they're going to make. You're sitting on the balcony and those are going to be kicking out heat and noise and God knows what, and you're sitting out here trying to relax. I mean, they're absolutely insane, or what?
Yeah, it's really bad.
No, we're going to have to sort that out. It seems to have reached the final straw. No, it's worse. I mean, I'm going to have to shut the site down. I'm going to have to shut everything down. There's the only option, so I'm going to have to shut the thing down.
We haven't signed off on anything.
There's just too much that's, despite all our attempts to have meetings, to try and get things on track, to make sure that things are done properly, things keep getting done that are just absolutely astronomically wrong.
Graham maintains that Nigel was fully aware of the positioning of the air conditioning units and all the work undertaken. But Nigel and Sarah decide to shut the site down and both sides agree to part company. It's October 2008 and 14 months since Sarah and Nigel bought their property, and nothing's now happened on site for 2 months. This development is becoming a total nightmare.
So where are you with money now? Because you were going to spend 250,000 on this, weren't you?
Originally. That was originally, but as you're probably aware, it's been creeping up. And I know you came in and said straight away that you reckoned it was going to sell twice at about 500,000.
You were right.
She beat me to it. Yeah, we're up to. It's looking like it's going to be. We're up to about 460 already with it.
So moving on from this stage, you've got a site that's shut down. Mm-hmm. You've got a budget which is roughly double what you were initially expecting.
Yes.
You're halfway through.
It's all gone a bit pear-shaped, really.
It's not looking that great, let's be honest.
Well, I'm actually looking on the positive side. Well, how I see it is that...
How do you see it? Tell us.
Well, how I see it is that you could look at it that way, but the way I look at it is that we've actually, by shutting it down now, we've averted catastrophe. And what we're doing is we're going to get the design package completed. So we've actually got a design package. Then we're going to get it costed, basically put it out to tender again. So we'll get the existing contractor to price it. And fortunately, Sarah's got some personal contacts who would be prepared to take on this project.
Once it's finished, you've then got the almighty problem of trying to sell it at something that isn't a dramatic and massive loss.
The vision we've got for what this place is going to be so stunning that despite the area, when someone walks in, you're going to get this effect where they're just going to be wowed by it so much that...
They say, have an extra £1 million.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
They're going to want to pay, they're going to give us a blank cheque. I'm going to sell it for £2.5 million.
Do you know, it's a beautiful place where you are.
Sarah and Nigel are in horribly deep, but they are still convinced about breaking even on this project. I think they'll be lucky to walk away with only a £500,000 loss. My next rule for how not to lose everything in a falling market is sometimes you just have to cut and run. No one wants to stomach a loss, but if you face up to it and deal with it quickly, there are ways to reduce your liability by dumping your development partway through. The trick is to be completely realistic about the price and make it appealing. Try and make the project appeal to less experienced developers who tend to be happy to pay a little more. Have a detailed file about your bills and put in sketches and designs for kitchens and bathrooms, which most suppliers will provide for free. Also list the potential budget, tradesmen people could use in their quotes, and certificates for any completed work. And if you've got planning approval for extensions, make sure you include the plans and a copy of the planning consent. Make one area of the development habitable so that any potential buyers could live on site. And if all else fails, go to auction. They're packed with would-be developers who are willing to take a risk. And if you end up with 2 or 3 people chasing the property, it could go for up to 10% more than you'd get from an agent.
812, 813, sold 830.
In Rotherhithe, Sarah and Nigel are hugely over budget. The super prime buyers have fled the market, and just as I'm starting to doubt that they will ever be able to see how grim things really are,
How's everything going?
Nigel and Sarah have a dramatic change of heart.
I can't believe it, but we've actually done a complete U-turn and we've decided that we're going to split the whole place into 3 different apartments now, which is going completely against, I realise, what we said we'd do originally, but we've decided that what Sarah Beanie said before is the right thing to do.
It's much more beneficial to do 3 apartments as opposed to 1, just for the simple reason it might be really difficult to sell something so big and so expensive, where at least if you've got 2 small flats downstairs, you're hedging your bets, aren't you? You know, you're at least going to get a sale from one of them.
This is good news. This project has now gone so off the rails, there's no chance they'll see a profit, but they might just avert total disaster. They get a new team on board and put in a planning application to turn it into 3 separate units. The upstairs 2 floors will be a large penthouse, the top floor largely untouched with the enormous terrace and living area. The downstairs will be a huge master suite, including walk-in wardrobe, and another double bedroom with ensuite, together with the large kitchen breakfast room they'd always planned. On the ground floor, where there was once going to be a cinema, wet room and further bedroom, there will now be a compact 1-bed flat and a decent-sized 2-bed flat. But there's no escaping the fact that their budget is still a huge issue. So last time I saw you, your budget was at 460,000. So what is it now that you're going to make 3 flats out of the building?
Total spend now has gone up to 650,000.
You bought it at £1.1 million, so you're in at 1.75 million finished. So what do you expect to sell the flats for?
Well, ideally 1-bedroom 220 to 250, the 2-bedroom 350 to 400, and the penthouse around 1.1, which would bring a total of 1.75 million.
So 1.75, that's the same as the amount that you're in at?
Yes.
So that would break even?
Yeah.
Is that an amazing coincidence? Which was kind of made up, the budget or the resale? To match?
It's just nightmare, all this to get absolutely nothing.
It would obviously be our preference to actually have more revenue come in than it's costing us.
Well, of course, that would be gorgeous, but if I'm really honest, I think that the reality of this situation is that it's going to be a lot less that you'd get coming in. You're more realistically looking at 220 for the 1-bedroom flat, 300 for the 2-bedroom flat, and if you're lucky, 700 for the penthouse, possibly as low as 500, but if you're lucky, 700. So that would be a total of 1.25 million. In a good market, making up your figures is a dangerous game, but when the market's falling, it's financial suicide. More than ever, you need to buy at the right price, work out a decent budget and schedule, and have a realistic sale price. Work to a rough estimate. If it's a total renovation, work on £150 a square foot. If it's a simple refurbishment, look at more like £50 a square foot. And then get your quotes and include every tiny detail down to the last nail. Next, allow 20% for the all-important contingencies. Even with a realistic budget, it can all go horribly wrong if you're not realistic about your sale price. This is not the time to be greedy. In Rotherhithe, Nigel and Sarah's hope of completing their development in 6 months for £250,000 is a far and distant dream.
Do you kind of accept that your figures are probably a little bit or very unrealistic?
I'd say they're a bit in between a little bit and very unrealistic.
But you...
I think they're quite unrealistic. I've always said we need to think a bit lower.
Whichever way this project goes, the reality is you're going to walk away with several £100,000 of a loss.
I've had a lot of sleepless nights. A lot of sleepless nights. Yeah. All of the capital, everything that I've got will be gone when we walk away from this.
It doesn't really get any worse than this. It really is bad. But it's just one of those things now, you know, we have to move on. And, you know, we're really looking forward to the point where we can just sell the whole lot and get out and move on.
There is one suggestion I've got that might help minimise your loss. If you come with me upstairs... Now, up here, on this side of the first floor, I think you can make this into a one-bed apartment, and I don't think it's going to affect the value of the penthouse. You've still got the rest of the first floor and the top floor, and this could easily have a bathroom here, a bedroom here, and then a kitchen living space at the end. You should be able to sell this for £200,000. It shouldn't cost more than about £30,000 to do, so you're looking at taking £170,000 off the proposed losses that you're looking at.
I think we'll certainly look into that, and then, you know, if we decide to go ahead with it, then, you know, we can.
One of the advantages with developing in this market is that you don't always have to pay full price. Whether it's building work, kitchens, bathrooms or furnishings, it's always worth having a go at haggling and see if you can get your costs down.
Don't always take the price at face value. Most things that are for sale are up for negotiation. Whatever price you're quoted, view it as an invitation to make an offer on the price you need to pay. You could get a discount of anywhere up to 50%. The 3 golden rules of haggling are: don't insult their intelligence by making a ridiculous offer. If they know you're serious, they'll be more inclined to cut you a deal. Pay cash so they don't need to wait for the cheque to clear. Money in the till is now a welcome lifeline to anyone on the high street. Be prepared to take it away there and then. Take your van because you're a much more attractive buyer if you can help them shift stocks quickly and easily. This has now become a crisis management project. Nigel and Sarah need to start coming to terms with what is going to be a very big loss.
There's a high chance we're going to lose money. We may break even. You never know. If the market goes up, we may make a little bit of money. But in all honesty, win, lose or draw, I'm actually a bit past that now.
The whole thing's like a ball and chain around my neck.
It's July 2009. Nigel and Sarah have been developing their sausage factory in Rotherhithe, East London, for 18 months. They paid too much for the property, even at the peak of the market, and the property had been up for sale for 4 years. Since they started, house prices have plummeted, and despite nationalising half of the banking industry, mortgage approvals are still at critically low levels. They set out to create one enormous 5,000 square foot luxury apartment, but were forced to change their plans and carve it up into 3 separate dwellings. They can't afford to finish the 2-bedroom apartment or penthouse until they complete the first stage.
It's fantastic to have this first flat done. And it's also just a shame that we wanted to have the whole property done by now. But, you know, at least it's the first stage, and with that done, we can move on to the next and, you know, soldier on.
And if the finish on the 1-bedroom flat is anything to go by, their first stage puts them in a good position to sell. There's wide oak flooring throughout, Corian worktops, leather sofas, a large, stylish bedroom, and a top-of-the-range limestone bathroom, complete with floating furniture, perfect for the young professional market.
Hi, hello. How are you? Fantastic. It's all looking fabulous.
Yeah, it looks great, doesn't it? Really, really pleased with it.
So this one's all finished, but the other 2 aren't finished yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the first one, but we're obviously looking to have the others match the standard of this, if not surpass it.
Once this flat is sold, they'll use the money to finish off the other apartment on the ground floor, which they plan to have a similar high-quality finish but with an extra bedroom and bathroom. But it's the penthouse where Nigel and Sarah still really hope to realise their design ambitions. Leading up the bespoke staircase to the first floor, there will be a large kitchen diner with black Corian worktops and white high-gloss cupboards, and the bespoke zebra-covered central unit. There will be a guest bedroom and an enormous master suite. But it's the limestone bathroom with its double sunken baths, plasma TV, his and hers loos, sinks and a rainfall shower where they will really go to town. And leading up the steel staircase, there will be the ultimate leisure zone with a cocktail bar and luxurious lounge area with green grass shagpile carpet and fashionable purple velvet sofas. This leads through sliding doors to the swanky outside relaxing area where the final style statement will be the jacuzzi hot tub.
I think that you've proven your point with the one-bedroom flat. The rest hopefully will be equally gorgeous. Mm-hmm. But you bought the property 2 years ago, so right at the height of the market, just as it was about to come crashing down.
We couldn't have bought this at a worse time, really. But then again, you know, there's more people than us in the same situation. We weren't to know the market had dropped right down, and there's nothing that we could do about it. And it's such a shame. But the thing is, if we sit here and get depressed about it, you know, it just makes things worse. And we're in this situation, it's not going to change. So we really have to make the best of it.
When I first met you, you were planning on spending £250,000 on the building work, and then when I met you halfway through and you decided to turn it into flats, you were thinking it would be closer to £650,000 you were going to spend on doing the work, not obviously buying it. Where are you now?
It's actually now come down. We've in fact come in. We're going to be coming in about 10% under budget, so it's around 580,000 will be our cost for the whole build now. And that's managing to make savings on materials and building works costs and everything else.
Nigel and Sarah bought the sausage factory for £1.1 million. They hope to reduce the original £650,000 budget to £580,000 by the end of the project. But is it a little too late?
You're in this project at £1,680,000. Do you have any idea at the moment what you might be able to get from them when they're all finished?
Oh yes, £1,680,000.
Weirdly, that's exactly the same as what you're planning on spending. It seems to be flexible, your resale figures, depending on what you've spent on it, because that was pretty much the same sort of line-up figures as last time.
What I'll say is that if we can get what we're looking to, which we believe we could be able to get, which is 250,000 for the one bed, 350,000 for the two bed, that means that we'd need to get at least 1,080,000 for the penthouse to break even, which we believe that, you know, is realistic.
There's one way to see if their figures are realistic, and that's to let the agents have a look.
One-bedroom flats such as this, if priced correctly, will sell very quickly. We sold one in King and Queen Wharf, which went under offer after about 21 days.
It's important that the property is priced attractively to draw buyers through the front door. They'll then be very impressed with the finish inside, which I'm sure will help it sell.
If this penthouse was actually located on the river with direct river views, you'd be looking at adding at least a 15% increase to the value of the property. I would value the one-bedroom property at £240,000, the two-bedroom at £285,000, the penthouse at £650,000.
I would value the one-bedroom apartment at £250,000, the two-bedroom at £350,000, and the penthouse at £850,000.
I would value the one-bedroom flat at £275,000, the two-bedroom flat at £360,000, the penthouse at £850,000.
It's a good price for a one-bedroom flat, a good price for a two-bedroom flat, and the penthouse, obviously that's the one that's kind of brought everything down because they haven't valued it as high.
Would mean that you'd make between a £505,000 loss, a £230,000 loss, and a £195,000 loss.
We can't afford to make a loss on this. So, you know, as I said, we've got all of our money tied up in this project. So if we have to live in the sell the first 2 flats and live in the penthouse, to then, for a period of time, to get at the price we need. That's what we'll have to do.
Even if it takes 10 years to get to the level that you want to sell it for.
Well, the fact is...
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a nice property, so it's not going to be difficult living in a penthouse for years and years, that's for sure. But we don't really have the choice, really. We need to sell it. We need to sell it at a good price, and we can't really afford to sell it for less,
No, we can't afford to sell it less, but I don't think it will take 10 years. In fact, I think, I'll be very surprised if we haven't got a buyer within 12 months.
This has been a roller coaster ride for you. It was a dream property, and it's kind of turned into a bit of a nightmare along the way, but you've ended up with a lovely flat and 2 more to go after you finish this one. It must have taken it out of you a bit.
I would say that if we did another property development, that's a big if, we wouldn't make the same sort of...
Did you just say, if we do another property development?
If we get as far as completing... Let me rephrase that. If we get as far as completing... When we've completed this property development, there could be the possibility...
I'm moving into a hotel.
So are you not keen to do another one?
No, I wouldn't.
The fact of the matter is
there's not enough time in my life to do that.
So you've hung up your developing hat?
Absolutely. I mean, I've enjoyed doing... This flat's been great, but no, I just couldn't be bothered.
I could be open to the possibility of doing another property development in the future, despite what's happened, simply because we've had a very steep learning curve, and some of the things that we would do very differently would prevent some of the pitfalls occurring again, and they just wouldn't occur. They wouldn't be allowed to occur. So it would be a very different story.
Well, fingers crossed, the 2 flats on the ground floor sell quickly, and then you can enjoy living in the penthouse, and you never know.
We watch this space.
1.5. You never know.
For Nigel and Sarah, it could be a long wait, because the housing market looks set to remain jittery for some time to come.
If you still think property developing's the business for you, then treat it with extreme caution. Whilst prices have come down considerably from their peak, there are some areas that are still so sought after that bidding wars are still going on. The most important rule of developing is to pay the right price for the right house. If you get your figures wrong at the start, like Nigel and Sarah, you're going to be in for a rocky ride, and this market will take no prisoners.